Hello and welcome to this episode of Catching the Octopus Podcast. I'm your host, Niomi Hurley, and today I wanted to chat with you about judgment. Judgment of yourself and judgment of others. And when we look at, let's start with judgment of others. During our lives, we're going to come across people that we resonate with and people that we're not so resonating with. And every person is here for their own learning, their own evolution, their own, for lack of a better word, journey. And a lot of the times throughout our life cycle, we will also be in places that future us may not align with, right? Again, that's part of that evolutionary process, growth and learning. And so sometimes we get to a point where we may be a little bit self-inflated, or we may think that other people feel more entitled to us, or whatever it might be, resulting in us judging others. Now, one of the things that I've really worked on and I try really hard to do is to not judge others. And anyone that's gone into learning about human behaviors and motivators and psychology and all those sorts of things will probably resonate with me when I say the more I learn about people and the behaviors and things that motivate them to think, feel, and behave the way that they do, the more I'm in a position where I'm less judgmental about them, because I can usually psychologically understand why they would do what they do, even though sometimes I don't resonate with it. And a lot of the times I will come across people that might be thinking, behaving in ways that I no longer do, but at some point in my life, I was there too. I used to think this and I used to do that. And so at no point have I ever felt like I'm perfect and I'm the perfect embodiment of a human, because I know gnomes in 10 years, when I'm her, I'm probably going to look back at gnomes today and go, oh no, really? Right? Because that's what it's all about. Now, some people don't though. Some people get stuck. They stay the same for their whole lifetime. Again, we can't judge them because that's part of their own process on what they're wanting to do. Now, I'm going to go too esoteric on you today and talk about what, there are ramifications to that. If you come into this lifetime and you're not doing the things that you had hoped to do and hoped to achieve, then chances are you're going to be given another opportunity to do that, right? So with that belief system within me, that going into too much detail how that works, but with that belief system within me, I'm very consciously aware, and hopefully subconsciously as well, of trying to get myself to a point where I have evolved into a person that I'm proud to be, in a person that does show up in a way that I can look back on and go, yeah, that's pretty cool. Now, has that always been the case for me? No. And if you look back at my last episode, you'll see me giving examples of that and when that has occurred. And so that's something that I have had to work on, like many other people. And when I'm saying, though, that I don't judge others, I still come across some people, though, that I feel like don't actually have an energetic match for what I want to include in my circle. I have in the past, as I said in the last episode, attracted people in romantic relationships that I now no longer resonate with me. And I have quite high standards and quite a high list of what my expectations will be of the person that I do end up including in my life in a romantic space. Now, that's not me judging everyone else. That's me just realizing what is right for me and what is not. Now, I still have empathy for those people that don't match that vibration that I'm looking for. I still have kindness for them. I still have understanding for them. And just because I do all of those things, it doesn't mean, though, that I need to include them in. Now, I've had some relationships even that aren't romantic that have dropped away in the last couple of years, which were very sad to have lost. But I also understand that that's just not where I'm at anymore. I don't align for those relationships anymore. And that's okay. Now, some of those people behave in ways that don't align with me, think in ways that don't align with me, but I'm not judging them. I'm just deciding that that's not the right fit. So that's two different things. When you're judging people, you're gossiping about them, you're going out of your way to probably try and trigger them, you're probably doing things to make yourself feel like you're better than them. And all of that comes into a space that doesn't actually feed greatness for you. So none of those things are serving you well. Just putting it out there. If you find yourself gossiping about people, stop. If you find yourself thinking you're better than other people, stop. Because that is putting out into the universe and into a vibrational space of, if I think I'm better than everyone else, then normally you're going to get tested, right? That shows that no, you're not better than anyone. You might just see life through a different lens, and that's okay. Now, when it comes to ourselves, we can sometimes be our own worst critic. There's a bit of a scale that it goes on. It can go from the person that believes that, well, this is how I show up and I might be rude and obnoxious, but this is me and everyone else has to get over it. And it might go right up to the people pleaser that's just trying to make everyone around them happy. And what we want to do is we want to sit kind of in the middle of that and go, well, look, I'm really happy about the way that I show up. I go in, hang on, trying to get my words together. I show up in a way that actually isn't intended on triggering people. I show kindness and I show empathy, but I also respect myself and my boundaries. And so if my boundaries are going to upset people around me, but I've actually delivered them in a really careful, concise, and empathetic way, then that's actually not on me, right? That I can sit very confident in that. But sometimes when things don't go great in life, in relationships, I know myself that I can be very harsh on the way I judge, the way that I was behaving, the way that I was thinking, the way that I was feeling. I have very, very high standards for myself, which is great in the evolution space because I'm always striving to achieve those standards, but can be very unhelpful in the self-reflection space because sometimes I can be really hard on myself. I remember there was a work situation I was in and there was a gentleman that I just didn't get along with, and I tried showing up differently in this way and showing up differently in that way and showing up differently in that way, and the conflict still existed. I remember after a meeting I was sitting at my desk and I'm like, oh, what did I do that contributed to that? What can I actually change? And my work colleague who was sitting next to me just looked and went, you need to not be so hard on yourself. Like some things are beyond your control. All you can do is show up as your best self. And if that's not going to create the outcome you want, maybe you need to have peace with that. And I sat in that and I'm like, yeah, you're right. And so what I do try to do is I do try to make sure that my self-talk is kind. Even if I've done something that I'm not impressed with within myself, even if there's things that I could have done better, I'm still kind to myself. I don't berate myself. I don't call myself names. I don't tell myself that I'm stupid or anything like that. I actually go, gee, you probably could have done that better. And then we start, when I say we, me and my internal self and my inner child, we kind of hang out, right? We go along and we have a look and go, and sometimes my spirit team as well. I'll add that in there. And we look at things and go, okay, well, what could we have done better? Let's analyze this. Let's unpack this. And if sometimes it comes to the point where I'm like, I don't know if I could have done that any differently, then I make peace with that. Now, that doesn't happen all the time. Doesn't even happen a lot, right? Because I think there's always things we can do. But sometimes there are spaces where I'm quite content with the way that I've shown up. And sometimes you can't please all the people all the time, right? The business I work in, the posts that I put up, I've had people call me an ambulance chaser because they feel like I'm trying to chase down people that have issues to try and get them as clients. But then I've had people as well as say, oh, wow, that post just changed my life. Thank you very much. So you're always going to get different people seeing you in different lights. And we just have to make peace with that there are other people that we're going to trigger. There are other people that we're going to help, that we are going to empower. And as long as we're doing that from the right intention and we're being kind and empathetic about it, then, and we, even if we have boundaries put in place, we can actually be secure to know that we're just trying to do our best. So there's a book called The Four Agreements that I would recommend you reading. It was my first book on self-development, I suppose you can say, that I ever read. That just changed my life and perspective. I was just coming out of that tricky space of where I was trying to control things around me and wasn't being a really nice human when I stumbled across this book. And the first one is don't make assumptions. So ask the questions. And I live that now in my life. Excuse me, I have, the other week, there was a situation I was in with another person and my head was just overplaying things and going crazy. And I was just like, oh, blow this. I'm not dealing with this anymore. So I picked up my phone and I reached out and I'm like, hey, this is the stuff going through my head. This is how I'd like it to be, but that's not what I'm thinking because of these behaviors. What are your thoughts? Right? Just put it out there. Get rid of the assumptions. So there's don't make assumptions. The other one is don't take everything personally. That was a really big one for me to overcome, because if someone was mean to me, I would be like, oh, there's something wrong with me. Or, if the car pulls out in front of you, you automatically think that it was out to ruin your day, right? Instead of realizing that, even with assumptions, they might not be a complete chicken head. They might not have great sight. They might be in a rush because a family member's in hospital. They might be having health conditions. Like, there's so many things. So we don't want to take things personally and we don't want to make assumptions. We also want to be impeccable by our word. And this is where I come into about the gossip element and things like that. Don't gossip about people. Don't create that negative karmic relationship or the negative energy. With relationships, if you're in a relationship with someone, romantic, friendship, work relationship, whatever it is, if you're gossiping about that person or you're talking badly or ill about them, that's actually sending vibrational energy to them. And whether they consciously aware of it or not, they will realize it. They will pick up on it. And it will affect your relationship moving forward. And this is quite a big one with romantic relationships where, the husband or the wife will go and complain and whinge to their friends about the other person. And it just enhances and creates more conflict in the relationship. And in my relationships, I would share a little bit of venting and frustration, but I didn't go into depths with a lot of things. And, when I separated and I was talking to one of my friends, she's like, I never realized all that happened. And I'm like, oh, that's not how I roll. I don't go and share that depth of detail because I know that if I'm trying to work on my relationship, I don't want to actually be causing more fractures by sending out that negative energy or generating that. So always be impeccable by your word. And that's not just about others, but by yourself as well. Like I said, always speak to yourself kindly. You can still have brutal honesty. Like, I'm brutally honest to myself if something goes down, but I can do it in a kind way. Right. So it doesn't mean that you always tell yourself, oh, you're perfect. That's not your fault. Oh, you're great. Oh, it's all them. And you're pointing fingers outward. No, you have to do the self-reflection and you have to do that self-inquiry and you have to do the self-adjustment, but you can do it in a kind way without berating and belittling yourself at the same time. And then the last one is simply always do your best. If you always do your best, then you can't have regrets. That conversation I had where I was not making assumptions and I was trying to get out of my head, I actually put in there, I don't want to look back on this moment and think what could have been. I just want to lay it all out on the table, right? So when you always do your best, you know that if it doesn't work out, at least you put in 100% effort. Because if you don't and it doesn't work out, then you go into that belittling yourself going, oh, you should have done this and you should have done that. And it becomes the shoulda. Right? The shoulda case where you're always running over different scenarios and imagining how things could have been differently. But if you show up as your best all the time And by showing up as your best means you master the impeccable by your word, not making assumptions and not taking things personally. That elevates your emotional intelligence and elevates your quality of the life that you're living in the way that you deal with the challenges that life faces, sends your way. It helps in the way that you process the things within different relationships and how they're working. And it gives you that peace of mind to know that, hey, even if this doesn't work out, there's nothing I could have done that could have made or changed the outcome of this. And there's peace in that, right? We don't always going to get what we want in this world. We definitely get what we need, but we don't always get what we want. And so it's important to recognize that. So I hope that's been helpful and I've given you some insights, and I look forward to serving you again in our next episode.